Hey everyone, it's Cadvance. You know, with all the stuff we've been doing lately, with all the digital downloads and stuff, and like YouTube and Crunchyroll and all that, it was only fair that I try these things out. And now, with that said, I'm going to talk about 10 of these that I saw around and just said, hey, I'm going to buy it when it comes out. And sure enough, I did. Now, there are some movies on this list, but the main reason they're on here is because YouTube occasionally does put movies on there, and then they disappear before you have a chance to see them again. And the only rule on this list, it has to be something that's anime that is here officially in the States. With that said, get ready and let's look around on the net as well as on video. This is the Cadvance Top 10 Anime I Saw Off the Internet. Number 10. Bokusatsu Tenshi Dokuro-chan, or as it's called here in the States, Bludgeoning Angel Dokuro-chan. This show is just insane. I mean, this is just overkill. Not Excel Saga's final episode overkill, but still pretty overkill nonetheless. There is this whole little subplot about how the main character is supposed to create immortality, but it's not supposed to make people age after a certain year. But really, that plot line is dropped rather quickly. It's like maybe an episode or two later and completely gone. The reason that people watch the show is because of the show's consistently running gag. The main character gets killed off in rather bloody, gory fashion, and then, despite the fact that she was sent there to kill him, the titular character, using her powers, brings the guy back to life 5 seconds later. It's funny, it's overkill, and it's available both as a sub-only version and a sub-dub, which I'm going to actually replace my sub-only version for this. Number 9, Koharu Biyori, or as it's called here in the States, Indian Summer. This 3-episode OVA is a little, while not as overkill as the last one, it's still kind of out there as far as fan service goes in this case. The show is about a guy who is a bit of a hobbyist who decides to get a maid, albeit one is essentially a robot. But of course, the maid doesn't like the hobby of figure collecting that he does, and as a result, tends to not think of him as a master. It's kind of a funny little one, and it is here in the States, but it's only available as a sub only, which is kind of a bummer. But it was cheap. Anyhow, it's got all these weird kind of characters, and it's just fun all around. Number 8, Vandread, or Vandread. As far as I'm concerned about how you say that name, it's tomato sort of thing. As for the plot of this one's actually kind of more of a harem anime, and yes, there is a few on here, so be warned. As for this one, this is set in a way far future where sometime before the show begins, a colony consisting of male and female members decided to split their differences and decided to go with one that is all male and one that's all female. Unfortunately, this results in them pretty much acting like they're savage, like each other is the other enemy, unaware that they're actually supposed to be mingling together. It's available here in the States, but it's tricky because there's actually 2 versions of this available. There's the standard edition, which is what I have, which only has the series that was dubbed here in the States, and an Ultimate Edition, which not only has the stuff that was dubbed here, but there is also a 2-episode OVA that, while it's not dubbed, it's still on the DVD, making it the only time that Funnies has released something that's sub-only. The show itself, though, is pretty funny, and it's definitely fun to watch if you're liking the stuff that's on here. Number 7, Girls Bravo. A commenter said back when did my Cadvance top 10 harem anime cliches that the most cliched anime on there was Girls Bravo, and for good reason. Just about everything that I mentioned on the cliche list is in this show. Not to mention the show itself is kind of weird. If you haven't seen the show, the basic theme is that the main character is androphobic, and as a result, anytime he gets around girls, he breaks out in hives. But luck favors the kid when he discovers that on an alien world in almost lunar orbit around Earth, yet undetectable, he finds a girl named Miharu who is the only girl that he knows that is pretty much like she's immune to his effects. So in other words, whenever she's around him, nothing happens. It's a pretty good show, and I definitely do think that it's not for little kids without a doubt. But yeah, it's kind of fun like that. Number 6, Onegai Teacher, or Please Teacher. This is another one that, well, it's not technically considered a harem, it is still considered a romantic comedy, albeit with a sci-fi twist. The plot of this one involves a guy with a weird disorder that causes him to go into these near-death comas, and unfortunately, when his body goes into the near-death coma mode, his body does not age. So even though the kid looks like he's 14, 15 years old, he's actually near 18. Anyhow, guy sees a girl who turns into their teacher, and the teacher is actually an alien who's here just observing the people. And in order to keep the secret of the alien thing covered up, they have the girl basically be the main character's wife. Yeah, it gets insane. What's really neat about this one is there actually is a sequel called Please Twins. And while Please Teacher is good, Please Twins is somewhat better, especially with the fact that a lot of the characters from the original show actually do appear on this one. All in all, it's still pretty cool, and I definitely do say to give it a shot. As for who has it, I think it's still Bandai. Number 5, Demon King Daimao. Recently just released thanks to Sentai. This one's actually pretty fun, and it's, albeit, it's still in the same realm as a harem anime. If you haven't seen the show, what it's basically about is this guy is going to a school thinking he's going to be high priest or something, but what he finds out from a talking crow is that it's actually the other end of the spectrum. He's actually going to be the demon lord. And because of this, every student in the school treats him like he's got the plague or something. Long story short, there's still a few people that hang around with him, either just because they like him or because they want to use him for his sheer power. It's a pretty funny show. I do think the dub does kind of waver a little, but otherwise, it's still a pretty good show to enjoy. Number 4, the Bleach movie trilogy. Now, to be fair, I only saw the first and third one on the internet, and as for number 2, I only saw part of it and then rented it later on down the road. As for the plots of these movies, part 1 involves a girl named Senna who, despite the fact that she can use a zanpakuto and wears the clothing of the Shinigami, she's not listed on any of the databases, nor is she human. So the question becomes, what the heck is she? Part 2 involves Toshiro fighting off an old frenemy of his who uses another. To put a long story short, he fights off an enemy that has a variant of the zanpakuto Hiyorimaru. Part 3 is probably the best because of the fact that the whole plot involves Ichigo going into Soul Society, despite the fact that they think everyone in the Soul Society thinks that he is their enemy, despite the fact that he saved their ass a few times. Yes, I just used a curse word. as for the movies themselves, the first one is good. The second one was, and number 3 is, of course, the best of the 3, hands down. Number 3, Kanekon, the girl who cried fox. This one's actually, as far as the fan service goes, this one is more overkill than some of the other ones on this list. The plot itself is kind of neat, though. It involves a kid who moves from the country to the city, mostly for schooling, when he sees a girl that looks like a pretty nice girl and goes all googly-eyed over him and even starts to, go crazy for him. And long story short, he finds out that the girl is in fact a yokai fox. But that's not the best part. The best part is there's other people who start to go for him, including a wolf yokai who pretty much kind of acts like Rei from Eva, but she's kind of fun to be. I will say this, just like some of the other harem anime on this list, this one is not for kids, especially some of the later episodes. But for what it's worth, it's still kind of funny, and it's definitely more interesting. Number 2, Origin, Spirits of the Past, or, as it's called overseas, Agito, the Silver-Haired. Now, the reason I'm guessing that they don't call the movie Agito the Silver-Haired here in the States is because, well, it kind of spoils the ending a little bit. As for the movie, it's set in a post-apocalyptic world where something happened, and as a result, the planet gets messed up, and now the forest is essentially sentient, and pretty much kind of does its own thing. It's a pretty good thing, and it's definitely kind of neat to see how a person from present day would deal with something as creepy as a post-apocalyptic world where plant life is sentient. And the number 1 best anime I've seen off the internet is, well, actually, it's a tie, but that's kind of important because it is a movie 1, movie 2 thing. I, of course, am talking about Eva 1.11 and 2.22. Yes, the new Eva films that just came out relatively recently. As for the plot, I can't really talk about number 2 because it would spoil too much of it, but I will say that part 1 is essentially a recap of the first 6 episodes from the original series, albeit with some really cool modifications, like the use of CG, and of course they kind of shortened the pace a little bit so that it's pretty down to earth. The second movie, pretty much, it kind of was like, okay, bye-bye old episodes, hello new characters and villains. It's pretty good, and I definitely love the announcement that part 3, while we have to wait till fall of next year, is finally getting a green light. Which means that, inevitably, because of what I've heard, that part 4 will be out probably next 2013 or something, I don't know. And I just realized something. This is the longest video I've made! Huh. So for those of you wondering if I'm still going to do Tenshi Week, I am still going to do Tenshi Week. I just haven't finished watching one of the shows on this list because it's kind of hard to find. I'll just leave it at that. So until next time, this is Cadvance saying, watch more anime!